Hello, and welcome to On Mute Now Podcast Season 3. We are four ladies on a mission to raise the volume on the conversations that matter. To those of you joining us on the live stream, thank you. You can join in on the banter and lively discussions across our social media and other podcast platforms. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, and welcome to On Mute Now Podcast Season 3. We're live and in living color, and welcome to Episode 3. I'm your lead host tonight, Natasha Latcham, and with me are my lovely friends and co-hosts, Yolande, Angela,
Hi, everybody. Hi.
and Raquel.
Hi there.
And just in case you're new to our podcast, with each episode, our discussions actually aim to raise the volume on the whispered conversations in our communities. And here's one of our audience members right now giving you that tagline. Go ahead, Jamie.
Raising the volume on the whispered conversations in our communities.
So thanks to Tara. And last week we had a special guest on. His name is Leo Brown, and he spoke to us about reimagining failure. So tonight we're taking a look at what is essentially communication or a lack thereof between partners, friends, family, and maybe even workplace colleagues. So tonight's topic is reading between the lines. And sometimes people try to communicate and what they say isn't really what they mean, and you just kind of have to extrapolate. That's a big word for tonight. You have to extrapolate the meaning extrapolate the meaning behind what they're really trying to say. So what we really want to know is, how valuable a skill would you say it is to be able to read between the lines, ladies? Raquel, I'll go to you.
I would say it becomes quite important, especially when you are living interculturally between two different communities. I have seen people make some serious faux pas when they have not understood that what's being said is not what's being meant. So yeah, it becomes quite important.
And what about you, Yolande?
Well, honestly, for me, anytime I hear the word reading between the lines, the thought that comes to my mind is behind enemy lines. And what I mean by that is, from the moment you're expecting me to read between the lines, it won't be long before you and I become enemies. Because I personally admit that I lack the skill to read between the lines. I've always been told as a very young girl that I lack the art of diplomacy, or I lack tact, and therefore I don't expect that from anybody. However, I'm guessing it's a valuable skill if you want to maintain friendships and relationships. I guess it's valuable. So therein lies my problem.
No worries, Yolande. And Angela, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's very valuable in so many types of relationships, whether it be in the workplace or also even among your personal relationships with friends. When when you say, "Are you okay?" and I say, "Yeah, I'm okay." Well, are you really okay? So it's. I think it's a valuable skill to be able to hear beyond what is being said, to hear the inaudible, essentially in conversations.
Excellent. And I know sometimes that obviously, depending on who we're talking to or the environment that we're in, it might require us to read a bit more between the lines than usual. For example, with your partner or your spouse, sometimes we can be a little short, and say something and hope that we're communicating a bit more than we actually are. And sometimes in the workplace or in friendship. So let's say maybe with relationships, so partner, spouse. How do you think the skill of reading between the lines manifests itself, Angela?
Well, it's those, I think you kind of you hope that your spouse understands that you're not quite saying what you mean. You know, when especially actually, I tell you where it really manifests is when you're in public and you're trying to pass on a message without letting everybody else know. And so they're looking at you, and you know, that's how, you know, I'm smiling, but I'm really not smiling. You got a
I
big grin
get
on your
that.
face, but I know that's not a real grin. Okay,
Yes,
what's
you know when
really
you take
going
up your
on?
handbag and you're like, "Oh, I'm going to the car." Hint, hint. It's time for us to go. You know, it's good.
Yeah, so there are times when you really hope that your spouse
Yes,
understands that I'm using code language here.
yes. And if they're not getting it, it's the worst.
It's frustrating. It's
What say
frustrating.
you? What say you, Raquel?
Well, I have to say, with I am in an intercultural marriage, and I find it very, very tricky because, like Yolande intimated, the Caribbean people generally tend to be very direct in the way we speak. If we say something, usually that's what we mean. But culturally, I've found in Northern Ireland, there are certain things that are quite the opposite to what is meant. So,
Hmm.
for instance, um, like when you go to somebody's house and they offer you food, you're supposed to say no, thank you, even though you want it, and you're supposed to wait till they say force yourself or something like that, and then you're supposed to accept it. But culturally, for me, if they ask me, do I want it? If I say no, it's no, I don't actually do not want it. And force yourself is not going to make me change my mind and say, okay, yes, I'll have some. So it's,
Yes.
it's been tricky kind of negotiating that and trying to find the right times when, oh, that's when I'm supposed to say yes. Oh, yes, please. So yeah.
No worries. And Yolande?
First, I'm saying hi to Geraldine and Ezekiel.
Hi,
I'm
Hi,
guys.
guys.
I'm definitely going to go in a different direction and answer the question very bluntly, as is
Mm-hmm.
my nature when it comes to reading between the lines between my spouse, myself. Raquel is saying that culturally there's a problem there, but to me, the problem is it's men because we are from the same culture, so it can't be a cultural issue, it has to be men. And for me, the biggest issue is communicating when I am looking for intimacy or something that is very private. And I don't feel like saying what I need to say because I feel like after 20 years, he should read between the lines. And then I always, my husband, whenever, and you actually use these words. I actually give him like, you need to read between the lines. And he goes, I'm not a mind reader. I'm not a mind reader. I'm not reading between any lines. Say what you want. And I'm like, that is so boring. Who says
Yeah.
what they want? So
Yes.
really, I think it's just men and women and saying what you mean or what you don't mean. I don't know. Doesn't work
But
for
you
me.
see that there? That you just said one. When you said,
What's that?
really? And it's not really. It's like, really?
It's true. I must say I've been guilty of that too,
That's
Yolande. I
why
think
Camille
that
is on my side. Camille says communication is key, but yes, he should know.
that's what I'm
Amen.
saying. I'm kind of agreeing with you, Yolande and Camille as well, because I think, if I've been with somebody for a while, I think that certain things you should understand. Like you should know me by now. Well, I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I just feel like, hey, you should know me by now, so I shouldn't have to say do this or do that or whatever. But who knows? It's just the dynamics between, I guess, the sexes. And in terms of maybe on the workplace, because of course that's a different dynamic now. So you can't just expect somebody to know you and to know what you're thinking or what you're saying. So how have you found the dynamic of reading between the lines, maybe when you're communicating with your boss or a colleague, or do you find in the workplace it's more straightforward? And audience, jump in as well and let us know. Type your comments in. Let us know what you think about communicating in the workplace, and if you find yourself having to read between the lines. Angela, what about you with the workplace communication?
Yeah, I think if you're reading between the lines in the workplace, I think it's normally a negative. So where somebody's coming across as trying to be positive, so in my role as a manager, if somebody comes to me and starts to give me some constructive feedback about other people, but that constructive feedback is loaded in many, many ways, so there are times where I'm like, okay, I need to decipher between what you're telling me that I need to take as constructive and what actually is veering on, it's a bit of an attack, and I need to be able to kind of filter that. So I find that if you find you're dealing with reading between the lines in the workplace, it's usually in a negative. For me, I find it's always a negative as opposed to a positive, except of course where, again, in my role where I'm speaking with people, maybe you're having one-to-ones or whatever, how are things going? Yeah, it's great. I'm like, okay, really? And then you find you're having to kind of dig and ask questions and all of that sort of stuff. So it's never really in that it's never used in a kind of positive way, I find, in the workplace. That's just my sort of experience. Yeah.
Okay, and what about you, Yolande?
Ah,
I
boy.
know you have a lot of workplace experience.
Yeah, but the thing, I ain't reading between no lines, love, and I ain't mincing words. That's why I'm
So
probably
you give
always
it to
in
you
trouble.
straight.
So I'm saying it straight, and whenever I believe that somebody is saying something and it's not straight, I'm digging. I'm gonna dig at you until you tell me what is the problem, because I ain't reading between the lines. Because if I get it wrong, then there is a problem. When I get it wrong
Yes.
and I respond incorrectly to what I got wrong, I don't know if it's my fault. I
Yeah.
cannot be blamed, or I do not hold myself responsible for misinterpretation. And that's why
Yes.
I'm going to dig and dig and dig until you tell me what the real problem is. I'm sorry, I
Yes.
have to
You
hold
see
my
what you
hand up.
said there, Yolanda? I think that's why it's so important. When they talk about, when we kind of take courses around, the art of listening, active listening and communication and all that, it's that sort of feeding back and say, so am I correct that what you are saying is, or so what I'm hearing is that correct? It might understand, the kind of checking that to make sure that you don't go down a path, like you said, Yolanda. It's so true. Yeah.
Yeah, and,
Very.
and I know that there's a lot of big terms that's been thrown around in workplaces, like having emotional intelligence and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I hold managers accountable, to be honest, for that too. I often use that in the workplace. Well, I think you need to learn in emotional intelligence, because if I'm saying something to you, I'm saying particular things that also has feelings behind it. So it's
Yes.
not just the words that's being said. It's what am I feeling that's behind this that I'm trying to tell you that you're ignoring. Because here's the worst thing for me in a workplace. It's the words when somebody says, sorry, you feel that way. Well,
Yes.
that is the worst kind of apology, or the worst
Yeah.
kind of, man, look, those
But
kinds of things.
that's taught. That's actually taught.
Yes.
Yeah,
So the
man,
stuff
I
where you
can't
don't
deal with
agree with
that.
what somebody said, right? You're trying to say to them, I'm sorry that you're upset, but I'm not upset. Sorry about what I said, because I meant
And
I said what I said.
Yes. And I meant
This
it.
historian is telling me he's sitting on the fence, but it's telling me that it's not a fault. Nature or social anthropology makes us who we are, and everyone is different. Yeah, I
Yeah.
accept that.
And
Thank you.
I like Camille's comment as well. She says in the military, asking questions was not encouraged, and so there was quite a bit of reading between the lines. So she thinks it depends on the type of job, and I agree with you. Raquel, just to have your input on that, communication in the workplace.
Yeah, it does depend on the type of job you're in. But in terms of things like the workplace politics, you very often do have to read between the lines and work out who's on whose side and why is this being portrayed in that way. And if you had been in the situation, would you have taken it that way? Or what is this really connected to? So yeah, there's a lot of that part of it where you have to try and figure out um, you know where it's coming from and why it's being delivered in the way it's being delivered and
Yeah.
so on. Yeah.
And I must hold my hand up and say that I think I've also engaged in speech or maybe in an email where I wanted the person to read in between the lines. Because, for example, not necessarily within the workplace, but maybe in your workplace, you're communicating with someone else from outside who's communicating with your workplace, and you find yourself repeating the same point, or they keep asking you something that you've covered many times in the email, and you're wondering, have you been following this email thread? So I would say something as, per my last email, kind of gently nudging you, you might need to go back and look at that last email because I answered this question, something like that, because you don't want to come across as, too
Yeah.
blunt or rude, but you just want to kindly guide them in the right direction to, look for the information that you're asking for because it's actually right there before you.
If I
I
can throw in
remember there was a
something,
time actually in a previous workplace that I had to kind of use and hope that the person would read between the lines in an email again, where we were working on this project and there'd been a lot of communication, like really communicate with everybody, to workshops, telling them what's about to change and so on and so forth. And then the change comes, and this person who should know better does something really, really silly that makes us look like we're totally disjointed, but actually that person just didn't follow the protocol. So I'm walking around fuming, and everyone's looking like, how are you going to do with it? How are you going to do with it? So I draft up this email, and I must have redrafted it about 3 times. And I said, we have to be careful that we put forward. And so one of my colleagues read it and said, by we, you mean you, right? I'm like, yeah, I'm hoping that they will read we. Yes, you.
Very good.
Angela,
like Ezekiel is saying, sometimes reading between the lines in some lines of work can make you get things wrong and make fatal mistakes. And
yep.
his philosophy is, if I don't understand, I'll ask. If I don't
Yeah,
ask, I won't understand. So he's being very
very
direct
true.
about it. But then there are some aspects that are not likely to be fatal. I'll give you one example of me working as a sub teacher, going from one school to another. And of course, you pick up lots of tips and you see lots of different ways that people do things. However, sometimes if you're not careful, you'll not notice the shift or the little body, the eye contact or the
Body
nuances that
language.
come out when
Hmm.
you suggest something from a different workplace and everybody glazes over like, yeah, right, because you're trying to tell us that we're not good enough and it's done better somewhere else. We don't want to hear. Thank you very much. So yeah, you
Yeah.
have to read.
Yes. I
I
like
think
Nikki's comment. It's gone. Of course, there's the details of speaking at different levels. So I guess if you're speaking with your colleague in the lunchroom, if you're speaking to your boss or such and such. So yes, I totally take that point as well. Sorry,
Can
Angela,
I
you
just
want to say
add?
something?
Can
Mm-hmm.
I just add before we move on, Natasha? You see in this context here that we call foreign. Foreign is
Yes.
where I first learned that everything is being said and done by email, even if the person sit next to you. And to me,
Mhm.
this whole context of email is what leaves a lot to be read between the lines. So for me, that is precisely why a lot of times I will be saying, speaking directly and asking you because email sometimes is the problem. And
Yes.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
It's very easy to read between the line, just verbally and through emails as well. So yes, clarity is always best. And if you don't understand, if you're not sure what they mean, it doesn't hurt to ask. Also, just to let the audience and the viewing and the listening audience know, you can submit a video or an audio to us saying our tagline. We'll be more than happy to play you throughout our episodes live or just on our YouTube channels or other social media channels. And you can submit your video or your audio saying our tagline to unmutenow1@gmail.com. So another question for my co-host here and for the audience who's listening and watching. Well, for the ladies, this one is for the ladies. Ladies, let's be honest. If you ever ask your spouse or your partner to do something a dozen times, and when you ask on the 13th time if they've done it and they say no, but I'll do it soon, and you say, never mind, I'll do it myself, what are you really saying there?
Well, I would respond, but I am definitely needing to link up with Camille. Camille says hubby and I do marriage counseling, and we teach that one mate should say something and then the other should try to explain what was said. And so often things are said or done, and the interpretation is
Yes.
different.
Yeah.
In terms of your question, Natasha, if I say never mind, I'll do it myself, I'm gonna be honest, and I'm probably against the mold right now. I actually mean I'm gonna do it myself. It
Mm-hmm.
means I don't want your help anymore because you took so long. And even when let's say
And
for
that's the
argument,
between the lines. That is the between the lines we're talking about. Yes, of course we're going to do it ourselves. But what we're saying in between the lines is, I've asked you. Go ahead. Go ahead,
well,
Yolanda.
okay, but that's a fair point. That is a fair point in that way. But
Yes.
the actual spoken word, I'll do it myself. I mean, I'm going to do it myself. But you're right. The reasoning behind why I'm doing it myself is because I've asked so many times, and it doesn't matter. And listen, even to the point where he comes and takes the Hoover, we would literally fight for the Hoover because I'm struggling to do it myself. And I'm not letting it go because you know what? I'm doing it myself. So
And you, Angela?
Oh, same here. If I say I'm doing it myself, I'm doing it myself. But all I'm saying is I'm frustrated. I'm fed up. Just don't worry about it. Don't even worry about it. I'll sort it out right now.
Pretty much. And they usually come and try to take it away from you. But yes, you hold firm, ladies, and do it yourself. Sorry, go ahead, Raquel.
I
Oh,
suppose
hold on. I won't get into a tug of war though. If you do want to grab it from me, I'm going like, if you're going to do it right now, it's all right. I'll step back and
yeah.
Go ahead,
That's
Raquel.
the bit I was going to add. I was going to say, for me, I don't think I would add, personally, I don't tend to add the never mind. I'll just say, I'll do it. It's fine. You know? And I suppose the it's fine really is the never mind. Yeah.
And
And
we know what the it's fine means. The it's fine is it's not fine, but I'm just gonna say it's fine.
it's fine
listen,
is
this
you don't
audience
have
is
to do it anymore. You don't
I
have to
think
do it anymore. I'm doing it. Yeah.
this
Go ahead,
audience
Yolanda.
is hilarious because Nikki says, doesn't it also mean please not bother me after? Yes, yes.
Yes,
It means
yes,
after, don't even talk to me.
yes,
Ezekiel, I'm glad that we're hearing a man's perspective,
yes.
Natasha.
Thanks for always representing Ezekiel.
yeah.
Ezekiel says he thinks asking the 13th time is asking the other person to get up and go do it now.
Now,
No.
Yes, that is what
Yeah.
we're
or
saying.
else,
That's a
or
good
else,
way to
not
see
bother
it,
me
actually.
after.
Camille says, Yolanda, let him hold the Hoover. Thanks so much. Now, James, I'm going to ask you to play this TikTok video by cutie girl underscore 81 that kind of reinforces this conversation.
Here are what we've called some of the deadly terms used by women. Like this one right here. Seriously? Which actually means she's giving you a chance to rethink what you just said. Moving on, here's another deadly term. Go ahead. This is a dare, not permission. This just a damn dare. Whatever it is, don't do it. Whatever it is, go ahead. Go ahead. No. Go ahead. Don't do it. What about this one right here? Here's a good one. Maybe. What that actually means is hell no. You want to go over my mother's house? Maybe. All right. How about this one right here? That's okay. She's thinking long and hard on how and when you'll pay for your mistake. That's what that is. That's okay. Then there's this single word right here. Whatever. This is a woman's way of saying screw you. Finally, we've got this single word. Wow. Trust and believe this is not a compliment. She's simply amazed that one person could be so damn stupid. Wow.
The last one for me. The last one. Wow.
Wow.
Wow. That
Yes.
that is actually my favorite, and I use it all the time. Hands up. Wow. There's no
I'm
no
telling
more
you.
words.
Wow says so much with just that one word. Trust me.
But you ladies are
Nikki says
spoiling
Steve
all
was
the
on point as always.
Sorry,
But this is
Raquel?
so this is
You
so
ladies are
unfair.
spoiling the world.
I'm wondering what is the vocabulary that men use that we're missing
Ezekiel,
between
help
the
us out here, man.
lines.
I'm wondering.
Ezekiel, we're gonna have a lesson here, man. I don't know. I don't know because I think I'm
We might
missing
have
the
to
mark.
invite him next for season 4. We might have to invite Ezekiel.
I think we should.
So, ladies, just in rounding off this discussion, can a case be made then for sometimes leaving things up for interpretation, or do you think it's always best action just to say whatever you're feeling when you're feeling it? What are your thoughts, ladies? I'll go straight to Raquel.
Absolutely, there is a case for not always saying it, right? Sometimes, like Angela mentioned at the start, you're in public and you cannot do the confrontation or you cannot do the detail, and you really need them to get it without spelling it out, you know? And it's a case of, yeah, and they know that no.
I
So
guess that
yeah, it
person has to be
comes
very
down.
close to you, Raquel, to understand your nuances then.
Well, I suppose in that case, I'm thinking about like a spouse or so,
Okay.
where you're depending on them in a public context to
Okay.
know that this is not going to work, not good idea. No,
Yes. No worries.
yeah,
And Angela?
Yeah, I think what Raquel has described is probably the only instance that I would say, you can kind of go down that route. I would always say it's best to just say what you mean and mean what you're saying. I think the challenge is knowing how to say it in a way that is that kind of achieves your aim rather than putting somebody on the defensive or whatever. But I think it's tiring if you're the kind of person that's always requiring people to try and decode you, to read your mind. I mean, it's emotionally draining, and I don't think it's fair to put people through that. I think you should just be plain and open. But as I say, in that scenario that Raquel has described, where it's between you and somebody close and you're trying to pass on a coded message, yeah. But I think in all other instances, just be real and stop putting that burden on people to try and decipher what you mean all the time.
Yes. Agreed. Yolande?
Again, I'm following these people on this chat here,
Uh-huh.
and I really have to say, I know Michelle's comments, sometimes silence is golden, obviously referring to reading between the lines, and other
Mm-hmm.
times it's deadly. I completely agree with that. And
Yes.
and there is Camille who's saying, I'm sure she's adding to Steve's long list. What about the term I'm fine? And
I'm
you're really
fine.
not fine.
Yes.
To answer the question directly, Natasha, I'm always going on a tangent. To
No,
answer
you're
the
fine.
question directly, I am usually not a shy person and I don't reserve anything. And my husband often complained that I embarrass him even in public. However, the only time in which people would find strange, because I've mentioned it already, the only time that I'm reserved is in my private, intimate life. And I do not wish to say things. And I'm not, so that means I'm not a romantic. And that's the only time in my life, which is very sad, that I expect it to be read between the lines. My children complain that I embarrass them in public too because I don't, I say what I have to say in public. So I really have to hold my hand up. Maybe I'm the big bad wolf out there, but in here somewhere private, I'm
You're the
pretending
kitty
to
cat.
be a little cat. Yeah.
Well, for myself, I think there can be a case made for both. I understand partly what Raquel is saying. I think if someone is close to me, whether a partner or my friend or sibling or something like that, and if we're out in a public situation and I want to convey something, I might get them to read between the lines. However, if we were just one on one, I won't bother with the coded messages. I'll just say what I have to say. In terms of maybe in a workplace or a social situation, I like being understood, so I don't like to have give people things to read between the line. I like to just say what I'm saying. However, I am aware sometimes maybe it's culturally being Caribbean, or maybe it's just me that sometimes even if it's just being straightforward, some people will receive you as being blunt or. So I have to make sure I'm not being nice nasty. That's a little term and nice. I'm not trying to be nice nasty. I'm just really just trying to be straightforward and saying what I have to say. And depends on the situation I'm in. I might coach it a bit softer or just. But I also like to ask, are you understanding what I'm saying? Do you get what I mean? Just to make sure that I'm not being misread.
You see, Natasha, I
Michelle,
just want to throw in
Sorry.
because I know we're going to wrap. I'm going to flip nice
Yes.
nasty on its head because you've mentioned it. The thing
Yes.
that gets me the most, and I find it is something that I'm going to accuse Belfast people of being off. You see that patronizing behavior of telling me things that you mean something else, but it's very patronizing. And I know you're not actually being nice. I know
Mm-hmm.
you want to tell me something else. I can't deal with it. I really can't deal with it. So the nice nasty to me goes both ways. And
Mhm.
yes, Ezekiel,
Interesting.
sometimes
Yeah,
for some people, decoding
that's
them makes them
interesting.
feel powerless because for some, being hard to understand gives them a sense of power. That is actually really,
Oh,
really
that's
Interesting.
interesting.
interesting. I
Yeah.
like that.
Absolutely
And I think
interesting
there's a lot
take
of
on
truth
things,
in that.
Ezekiel.
Some people want
Wow.
to
I'll
be
bear
all
that
And I
in
don't mean
mind.
that
mysterious.
wow in Steve's way.
I'll bear that in mind. Thanks for that, Ezekiel.
Can I just throw this in, though, that we must bear in mind, though, that culturally, other people might not find directness to be a desirable feature, and being polite probably is of more value, and sometimes the level of being polite overshadows and outweighs, the feeling that they have. So they will say things to you to be polite, that if you were to give them the time to get deeper, you would discover what they really mean.
Thanks,
So
Raquel.
But
yes,
does being direct, sorry, I think does being direct, I think we're using direct almost in a negative way. Does
Yeah,
being
that doesn't have,
direct
yeah,
necessarily mean that you're not being polite? I think it's possible to
no.
say what you mean, but to couch it, I say put a filter on it,
Mm-hmm.
in a way that kind of comes across in, it's in love, it's in respect and all of that. But this is still what I'm saying. And I think maybe that's the challenge for us is how to, it is the challenge in communication, isn't it? Saying what you want to say without it being received in the wrong way and with it just kind of, achieving the purpose for which you said it,
We need a
So
master
I think this
class here.
conversation needs to continue. Get some men on
Definitely
Yes,
this.
need a
yes.
master
A
class with
masterclass in
Camille
communication.
and Michelle and Angela leading.
Yes, no worries. And James, can you just play one more video for us with our tagline being said so lovely by one of our viewers?
Raising the volume on the whispered conversations in our communities.
Lovely.
Hey, Antigua.
That's right. And we're raising the volume. The conversations don't always have to be, what I'm saying, all heavy, and we can have lighthearted conversations as well and raise the volumes on those. So just while we're wrapping up, just to remind everyone that on Mute Now, our host organization, UK Pivot, will be having a winter wellness walk on the 17th of December, 5:30 in Belfast, starting from Crescent Park. That's the park that's close to Axoni for the people who are in Belfast and know that. We're getting ready to be fit before Christmas and we eat all that food. You know what I'm saying? So don't forget to join us. It's a sponsored walk. So if you see one of the ladies, we'll have our sponsor form. You can sponsor us, or you can visit our website, ukpivot.com. Click on events. You'll see the walk, and you can just click pay and drop us a few pounds. Yeah? Thanks so much. And while we are wrapping up, just to let you know our social media handles, you can find us at Unmute Now 1 on Twitter, Unmute Now at Facebook, and on Instagram. You can also find us on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and across all the podcast platforms. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel and drop us an email at unmutenow1@gmail.com to let us know what you would like to raise the volume on. So, my fellow ladies,
Natasha, we have to have another conversation because Ezekiel is gonna get us started here on the
I
use of
love that last
proverbs.
comment there.
The
We
use
got to
of
have a part
proverbs,
two
which
of this.
speaks
we
a
might
whole
have to have
lot
a
of
bonus just for
volume.
Ezekiel. Ezekiel, find a mate. You can have some.
Thanks, Ezekiel. We appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Thanks so much. So, for my fellow co hosts and myself, thank you so much for watching us. Until next time, James, take it to Desiree.
Bye.
Raising the volume on the whispered conversations in our communities.
Thanks for listening to our On Mute Now podcast. If you would like to be in on their conversations live, follow us on our social media platforms during our live broadcasts. We are at Unmute Now 1 on Twitter and at Unmute Now on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and your favorite podcast platforms. Like, follow, and rate us on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a voice message on Anchor, and like, subscribe, and comment on our YouTube channel. If you want to raise the volume on something or contact us, email onmutenow1@gmail.com. Unmute now.